Have you ever wondered why some people can explain complex topics so clearly that even a child could understand them, while others leave you more confused than when you started? Think about the last time someone tried to explain something complicated to you. Maybe a new technology, a work process, or even directions to a place. Did you walk away feeling enlightened or completely lost? Here's something that might surprise you. Being an expert in a subject doesn't automatically make you good at explaining it. In fact, the opposite is often true. Today, we're diving into The Art of Explanation by Ros Atkins, a book that completely changes how we think about explanation as a skill. Atkins shows us that a clear explanation isn't just about dumbing things down or using simple words. It's actually a sophisticated professional skill that requires specific techniques and deliberate practice. If you've ever struggled to explain something important, or if you want to become someone others turn to for clear answers, this video is for you. Let's start with Atkins' most important insight. Explanation is not the same as just sharing information. Most people think that if they know something well, they can automatically explain it well. But Atkins proves this assumption wrong. He calls this the explanation method, a systematic approach that treats explanation as its own distinct skill. Think about it like cooking. Just because you can eat food doesn't mean you can cook it well. Similarly, just because you understand something doesn't mean you can help others understand it. The first major concept Atkins introduces is information architecture. Imagine you're building a house. You wouldn't start with the roof, right? You'd begin with the foundation, then the walls, then the roof. Explanation works the same way. Every piece of information needs to be placed in the right order so that each part supports the next. But here's where most people mess up. They try to include everything they know about a topic. Atkins shows us that a good explanation often means leaving things out, not putting everything in. He calls this managing cognitive load, basically not overwhelming people's brains with too much at once. Let me give you an example. If someone asked you to explain how a car works, you wouldn't start by describing the molecular structure of gasoline.
You'd probably start with something like, you press the gas pedal, which tells the engine to work harder, which makes the car go faster. That's information architecture in action. Now, here's something really interesting that Atkins discovered. He found that audiences aren't simply smart or not smart. Instead, everyone has what he calls a knowledge landscape. You might be brilliant at understanding music, but terrible with technology. Or you might be great with numbers, but struggle with visual concepts. This means that when you're explaining something, you can't just think, my audience is beginners, or my audience is advanced. You need to think about what specific knowledge they already have and what they're missing.
Atkins also discusses the curse of knowledge. This happens when you know something so well that you forget what it was like not to know it. It's like trying to remember what it felt like before you learned to ride a bike. Once you know how to do it, it seems obvious. But for someone learning, it's not at all obvious. The book gives us practical ways to fight this curse. One technique is to actually map out the learning journey. Write down every single step someone would need to go through to understand what you understand. Don't skip steps that seem obvious to you. Those obvious steps are often where people get lost. Here's another crucial insight from Atkins. Timing matters more than you think. He shows us that explanation isn't just about what information you share, but when you share it. Imagine you're explaining how to bake a cake, but you mention the frosting technique before explaining how to mix the batter. Even though both pieces of information are correct, the timing makes the explanation confusing. Atkins calls this controlled revelation. You reveal information at exactly the right moment, when people are ready to receive it. Not too early, not too late. This requires you to think like a detective, watching for signs that your audience is ready for the next piece of information. Are they nodding along? Do they look confused? Are they asking questions that show they're following your logic? The book also addresses something most explanation guides ignore: credibility. When you're explaining something, you're not just transferring information, you're also building trust. If people don't believe you know what you're talking about, they won't really listen to your explanation. But here's the tricky part. You can't just say, "Trust me, I'm an expert." You have to earn credibility through the way you explain. Atkins shows that when you acknowledge the limits of what you know, explain why certain evidence is reliable, and don't oversimplify complex topics, you actually build more trust. People can tell when you're being honest about complexity versus when you're just making things up. One of my favorite concepts from the book is what Atkins calls explanation flexibility. This means having multiple ways to explain the same thing. Think about a great teacher you've had. They didn't just repeat the same explanation louder when you didn't understand. They found a completely different way to help you see the same concept. Maybe they used a different example, or approached it from a different angle, or connected it to something you already knew. Atkins argues that professional explainers need to deliberately develop this skill. For every important concept you need to explain, you should have at least 3 different ways to explain it. This way, when your first approach isn't working, you have alternatives ready. The book also tackles a problem many of us face in our work lives. Organizations often assume that their technical experts can automatically explain their expertise to others. But Atkins shows this leads to poor communication, frustrated customers, and missed opportunities. He argues that explanation should be recognized as a valuable skill in its own right, separate from technical expertise. Companies that understand this invest in training their people to become better explainers. They create environments where taking time to explain things clearly is rewarded, not seen as a waste of time. Here's something clever that Atkins does throughout his book. He uses his own explanation method to explain the explanation method. So, while you're learning about these concepts, you're also seeing them in action. This makes the book itself a demonstration of effective explanation. You can observe how he introduces concepts in the right order, uses examples to support abstract ideas, and connects new information to what you already understand. The practical applications of this method go way beyond just teaching or presenting. If you're a manager, these skills help you give clear instructions and feedback. If you're in sales, they help you explain your product's value. If you're a parent, they help you guide your children's learning. The principles work because they're based on how human understanding actually operates, not just how we think it should. Let me leave you with this thought from Atkins' book. He says that in our complex world, the ability to explain clearly isn't just a nice skill to have. It's becoming essential for almost every profession. The people who can take complex ideas and make them accessible will always be valuable. Whether you're explaining a new policy at work, helping a friend understand a difficult situation, or teaching someone a new skill, these principles will make you more effective. The key is to remember that explanation is a skill you can improve with practice. Start paying attention to when explanations work well and when they don't. Notice the structure, the timing, and the examples used. Begin to see explanation as a craft worth developing, not just something that happens naturally. What's one topic you wish you could explain better? Drop it in the comments below. And if this video helped you think differently about explanation, give it a like and share it with someone who might benefit from these ideas. If you enjoy thoughtful reflections like this, I also write about book reviews, mindfulness, and purposeful living on my blog, The Zen Journal. The link is below. Remember, a clear explanation isn't about making things simple, it's about making complex things accessible. There's a big difference, and mastering that difference can change how effectively you communicate in every area of your life.